Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name is Mike. I'm an alcoholic. I was told to speak loud because the old ladies in the back could not hear, and I don't see any old ladies back there, so I guess they must be up front. So, it's good to be here. I want to thank Casey and Ramona for asking me to be here. Ramona called me this week and reminded me I had to be here, and it was kind of like I have to, you know. I kind of wanted to speak here. I told Casey I'd like to speak at this meeting. I like the meeting, you know. I just like to contribute and be a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's important that I participate on all levels in AA. Then when they call you and tell you, oh, remember you said you wanted to be here, you're going to be here Friday, it's like, oh, not this week. I got things going on I don't want to talk about this week, you know. How about next week? Can we switch it around, you know? And it's always the week that you're off. It's never the week that you've been on for like 9 weeks in a row, but it's that 1 week that shows up. And you know, it's all my interpretation. I make up how the week's going. But I'm glad to be here, and it's an honor to be in Alcoholics Anonymous and be sober. I met Mike at the break, and I want to welcome you again. Just sit back and relax. Most of these people are much sicker than you, so you're really doing well, so don't worry about it. But they can help you. If you relate to any of them, just notice where you're coming from. It's probably as sick as they are. That's something I noticed too. They say, boy, those people are really sick, and I would always relate to them. You know, like, wow, oh yeah. Yeah, I relate to it. Well, that guy's really a sick bastard. He's hopeless. But I relate to you. And you go up and give him a hug afterwards. You go out to coffee and find out you guys are like soulmates forever, you know, and you've been together, you know. It's like, oh yeah, we can sit around and talk about how bad it is. There's some comfort in that, you know. I like miserable people. I enjoy miserable people. And I can kind of sit down and just totally, our stink shit smells together, and we rub up together, and you know, and look out there and go, boy, they've been just bugging the crap out of me for years, all these people going by. And you know, I think that's part of AA. We just kind of come in and realize we're not alone anymore. And you know, they used to say misery makes great company. It does. It makes great company. The question is, do I want to stay there? You know, and how long am I going to stay there? And we were talking at the break in the back. I was accused of being from the Pacific Group, and because I got a tie on. Okay, I'll be from the Pacific Group if you want. I don't give a shit. I'm not from the Pacific Group. I've been there a few times, and I've cleaned up. No, I've never cleaned up turds in Clancy's yard before, but I've cleaned up the park out front. You know, had to clean up my language. They actually charged me $2 when I was in a softball tournament out there because I swore. And I said something like the F word when I missed a strike, and the guy said, that's $1. And I said, I'm not paying you no $1. And he said, that's $2. It's like, man, I haven't even struck out yet, and I'm already $2 under, you know. It's kind of the story of my life. I'm always like going back 2 steps and looking for the front 1 step forward. But no, I wore a tie today because I'm involved with my life as well as a professional, and I got a business I just bought recently that's about improving people's lives, and it's a training company, and it helps people to get in touch with what they want to have happen. And we have a training going on this weekend right over here in LAX, and it's part of the gifts of being sober is sometimes you put on the good clothes, you know. Plus, I'm a Disney fan. I'll get that over with right away. This is not a picture of my sponsor here. However, I've had many animated experiences in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I go to Disneyland 40 or 50 times a year because I like to detach from my body and float around the universe and not be attached to myself. I don't know what that's about, but I like escapism. And I also enjoy fairy tales. So I go to Disneyland all the time because I like to be in touch with the little guy in me. And I was little at one time. When I was born, I was as tall as Diane, actually, right over here. My mom's still screaming about it, but she blames all her gray hair on me. But I'm a big Disney fan. I even got the socks on today. I got the Mickey socks going here too. So, you know, I don't mess around. I mean, I'm just gonna like be myself up here. And if you don't like it, you know, go to the Al-Anon meeting. I think it starts at 9 o'clock right down the street here or something. And Bob, you make me look like I looked like you when I was about 2 years before I got sober. I ran into 5 guys one night, and I looked like you the next morning. And when I first saw you, it just, you know, even on your neck and stuff, you know. And I know you're getting better. We talked about that. In case you know, Bob didn't get in a bar fight. He actually had surgery done, and wasn't chasing parked cars or anything. But he's improving himself. But I looked at you, and I looked like that after one night. You know, I couldn't open my eyes, and my nose had a big shield on it. It was just because I ran into the wrong guys, and it was just how I was living. And when I first saw you, it just, you know, it touched me, and it touched me in a way that it took me back there. And you know, I don't ever want to live there anymore. So, you know, I hope you feel better, because I know it hurts just to go to your body and have your being hurt like that. But thanks for being here anyway, and not staying at home waiting for your face to get better, or, you know, because that's, I know what it's like to come in here, your vanity's at stake, you know, like, oh, I'm going to look bad, you know, and people are going to look at me funny. But that's, you know, this is about a place of getting well and getting sober and cleaning up our lives so we can have happy, joyous, and full, rich lives. That's how I look at it. And we were talking earlier, you know, well, you know, what's the program, you know? What's AA? And you're here 34 days, you know, and if there's anything I can do tonight is I hope I can deliver something to you that gives you hope to come back. Because all I really have is now. There is no other place. And there's really no one out there that's going to save me. I'm going to have to save myself. And I don't mean like I can sometimes. I got to come here and let George help me, or Kevin, or Ramona, or Casey, or someone here hold me long enough so I can just realize that I'm okay. And that happens now. I'll have 14 years in December. I got sober when I was 21. And when you get sober when you're 21, you're thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? Jesus. It's all done. I've done all the drinking, the smoking, the falling down, the chasing. What am I going to do now? You know, my life's boring. That's probably why I go to Disneyland all the time. It's the only thing I could come up with. I was here a few weeks ago, and Dave Barge spoke here. And Dave Barge is a very important person to me. He's been one of the mentors in AA. So is George. George is a huge what he does for people. I've had the real privilege to work with him on doing the flag ceremony. It'll be next 4th of July in case you have a group that wants to participate. We've had a real privilege to be able to put that on every year and help people to contribute and to participate in their sobriety. And it's become this big enigma at the roundup. You know, we keep threatening to take it away, and people keep telling us, no, you're not. So we're going to have it again. But what we get to see by stepping back every year is how it's the participation in AA is so vital, not only to people's sobrieties, but their lives. It gives them hope, it gives them value, it gives them a sense of belonging. And if there's anything that happens to an alcoholic, especially like me, is what AA did for me first and foremost is it gave me a place to belong. Because for so long I felt like I didn't belong. I felt so separate and apart from. And I usually felt it right around 11:30 p.m. And it was usually when I had to get up at 6 a.m. to go to work in the morning. And it would always come up, and the head would start saying, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? How come I feel so different and apart from? I had this little conspiracy when I was a kid that you all got together. And I mean you all, anything that spans out from here exponentially to the other side of the planet. That means all people got together and had a town meeting, and you guys got together about 7 a.m. and you said, when you see Mike today, let him know what a lousy job he's doing. And that was my conspiracy. I don't know why that was, but I just woke up, and when I went outside, it was like everyone was out to get me. I felt like I was not ever doing it right. I was always wrong. Somewhere along the way, I was always wrong. Once in a while, I would line up and I would do something right. But I always took it as I was not doing it right. Like, God damn it, you know? What did I do now? And I'd go back and I'd try harder. And the harder I tried, the more I'd screw it up. And the more I'd hurt. And the more separate from I would get. And, you know, my sponsor, I had a sponsor in sobriety who used to talk about, you know, the spaceship that would land in your backyard. And the little green man will get out and say, you know, the reason you feel so different and apart from is you're not from this planet. You're from another place. And you need to get in the spaceship so we can take you back to where you belong, so you feel like you belong, you know. And that's how I felt. I felt like I just was never getting it right. And when I found alcohol and drugs, I found something that worked, you know. I found something that took away those feelings. See, the reason I drank was the effect produced by alcohol. It talks about that in the big book, the effect. And the effect it had on me is it took away the separateness. See, my mom doesn't drink. My mom's an Al-Anon once in a while. She goes when she has to go. But she's pretty much, for the most part, a normal person. Very loving person, very responsible, takes care of herself, never, you know, the only thing she has is she married an alcoholic and she's got me. So she's busy. And then my sister kind of fell in between all that mess, you know. But she's a very loving person, and just as a very honest person. It drives me crazy that she'd want to be that honest. Why would anybody want to be that honest, you know? But that's how she is. It's a natural thing. But when she takes a drink, what happens is she kind of gets a little off edge. Starts feeling a little separated, a little distant, a little out of control. Can't quite control herself. And every time she describes that, it's like I say, God, that feels like me sober, you know? And when I take a drink, I start showing up as honest and blunt, to the point, and I start saying, you know, I start being in touch and relate to you. It's like everything is in touch when I'm loaded. And that's my disease. It's the disease of separateness. It separates me. And my perception of that is huge, because, I mean, I've lived with this conspiracy all my life, and I'm still waiting for the little green man to show up. And, you know, there's, you know, I even had this one little thing which makes a lot of sense today, and I didn't know it for a long time. But I had this one thing about, I always thought that I was like a lost prince, and somehow or another the prince ran out of money at his kingdom, and he's dropped me off at my mom's house, and one day he's going to show up, like some king's going to show up and say, hey, you're the prince, get in the car, let's go back to your country. And for a long time I thought, Jesus, man, when is this guy going to show up? Because I'm sure waiting for him. And that would explain all these things, you know, all these questions I had. And today I've learned, and I had a sponsor and a good trainer and a coach who told me that we're all princes and princesses in God's kingdom. And that when you're ready and when you're open, that that person that showed up a long time ago, and it's not in the form of anything else except you. You're the one who gets to show up to the kingdom. And once you do, you'll always be the prince. And someday you'll be the king. And I was like, wow. So I always had that side of me that was always held myself in the highest place, but I didn't know how to recognize it. And there's people in AA who always hold me in a place that it's in a place of complete 100% full. There's nothing wrong with me. In God's eyes, there's absolutely nothing wrong with me. But what I've made up over the years, through a lot of hurt and pain, resentments, fears, discombobbled or broken relationships, a lot of bitterness, is that something's wrong, something seriously wrong. And a lot of it had to do with where I was living from. The chapter of the agnostics talks about power. And when I got to the point that I discovered, did I have this thing, alcoholism, then I found out why I was supposed to be here. But for a few years in AA, I wasn't sure why I was here. I was here because they did it to me. I was here because I hung out with the wrong group. Or I did it because I drank the wrong combinations of booze. I was still in that conversation. Like, well, I just didn't quite have enough sake, which I never had sake. I could have had some sake. And you kind of look out there and go, well, wait a minute, can we put the whole sobriety on hold and try the sake? You know, I was always running through the files, thinking, okay, what was the wrong thing? Did I just not do it right? Or maybe I was too much cocaine, or maybe it was too much pot, and I did all that stuff too, you know. But what I found out by having a sponsor who described to me some untreated alcoholism after a few years of being here was that I have this thing, drunk or sober. And we went through the big book. Is there one here? It's in the back. Cool. That's a big book, by the way, Mike. I don't know if you got one, but that's the program recovery is outlined in the big book. You hear a lot of opinions in AA, but if you don't want to hear any of these things, just use the big book, and it kind of has a context to it that was written by people. Thank you. Appreciate that. But it was put together by a bunch of people, and one guy actually wrote it, and he listened to a lot of opinions. And it's over time has held the fact that it works. It keeps people sober. And not only that, it helps them to rejoin the world and be able to be effective and useful. And but I went through this with them, and I started on the title page, and I went through it as a process. I was going through it at first. The first couple of years, it's kind of like something you read, you know, like a magazine, GQ, Sports Illustrated, Time magazine, whatever, and just kind of get my bits and pieces. But what was important is that I sat next to the old crusties in the AA in the program. Those are the old people in AA, I call them. The people who have been sober a long time. I actually call them old crusty fuckers, but I can't say that in AA. So, but I'd sit next to those guys and try to get it by being like next to them. And if I just did what they did, I'd get it right. So I'd listen to what they'd say, and I'd hear a little bit what you'd say, and then over here, and then I'd put this together, this little spiritual meatball, and I'd eat this thing, and then I'd walk out of the meeting full and happy. And usually about 20 minutes away from the meeting, I'd run into a traffic jam, or somebody got in my way, and the whole thing went out the door. And then it was the landlord and the boss and everybody else screaming at me. And I ended up in sobriety wondering why I was so full of pain. And I'd been sober 2.5 years, and I'd come to AA just to get the sting off me, and I was tired of getting beat up by drugs and booze. So I stayed here because I related to you a lot, but the thing was, I really didn't know why I was here. I would say I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic, or I'd say I'm a drug addict and alcoholic and an overeater, and I watch too much General Hospital, or things like that. And what I found out was I didn't have any idea why I was here. And this sponsor and a group of people, I heard the sponsor talk, and he talked about being untreated, and I didn't know what that meant. And now that's a perception, but untreated meaning I'm sitting in AA and I'm not drinking and I'm crazier than I've ever been in my life. See, when I got here, my life got worse before it got better. I went to jail 9 times in my first 4.5 years of sobriety. I never went to jail when I was drinking. And we're having fun, happy, joyous, and free. That's not happy, joyous, and free. I lost 4 or 5 places of living in my first 4 years sober. I think I went through 5 cars, 3 or 4 girlfriends, and I was a monster. 2.5 years sober, I was a full monster in AA. He'd come in here and I'd scream at you, just share the book! Over there beating on it. And I was nuts. And I'd go home and that damn conversation would come in my head again, is what's wrong with me? How come I can't get it right? So I ran into this guy, and I heard his tape, and he talked about untreated alcoholism. And he describes some things on page 52 in the big book. They call it the 7 bedevilments. It says, we asked ourselves why we shouldn't apply to our human problems the same readiness to change our point of view. We were having troubles with personal relationships. We couldn't control our emotional natures. We were a prey to misery and depression. We couldn't make a living. We had a feeling of uselessness. We were full of fear and we were unhappy. We couldn't seem to be of real help to other people. And he started going through that. He also went through a part in the doctor's opinion about not being able to solve our problems, that they become astonishingly difficult to solve. And he says these allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all. And once having formed the habit, they found they cannot break it at once, having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon things human, and their problems pile up on them, and they become astonishingly difficult to solve. And then he read, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. That's me. I was trying to, even sober, I was trying to say, come on, let's go. Where's the happy, joyous, and free? How come I can't get it? And what I was doing was trying to just fix the outside so I could feel better inside. And I wasn't doing any work in AA. I'd been sober for a while. When I was drinking, when I started getting uncomfortable, I could put it out with the booze. I could numb out. I found out about 3 or 4 years sober that alcohol saved my life. It kept me from doing this for years. Because the conspiracy got bigger the more I drank. I'm going to tell you, those cops were on me. They all got together at the town meeting every morning. And so did the teachers and the landlords, and my parents showed up too. I don't know how they got to the conspiracy. They were at home when I first got up. You know what I'm saying? Everyone became part of the deal. Even those guys at the treatment center. I would go to the treatment. I went through treatment. I get up there and said, these guys are in on it too. What's up? They were in Colorado. They didn't even know me here. I don't know how they got over there. But it does. It says, frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. And these were big things. That's why I kind of read them here. And I know them by heart, but for some reason I don't want to know them by heart. I'm going to read them because they were important to me to see that how I was existing in sobriety. And do I want this thing like it's outlined in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous? And it's like when Bill Wilson died in 1971, a lot of people started buying the big book. You know, if he would have lived after he died, he would have been a rich man. But he didn't live after he died. Lois lived a rich woman because of the rights of this. But Bill lived basically a poor salesman most of his life. Very frustrated, by the way. But when he died, they realized what he had done. The man who he was to alcoholics and to Alcoholics Anonymous. And they knew it years before, but when he died, it was really apparent. But what they had done here is they had put together a context for alcoholics who suffer from alcoholism to find a way of living which will save their lives, and not only that, make them useful again. But the problem I was doing is I was just going to meetings and not drinking. And it worked for a while. Sat in a lot of meetings. I went to 750 meetings my first year. I recommend it still. I would do it. Still do it if I can. But for my first year, 750 meetings. Second year, 850 meetings. So more meetings. I'm not feeling well, so go to more meetings. I go to meetings in the morning, go to meetings at noon, I go to teddy bear meetings. You bring a teddy bear and some pajamas. You sit there and get in touch with your inner feelings. Smoking, you know, we're both smoking with a cigarette. Yep, I'm spiritual, all right. My inner child's happy too. Bring me another cup of coffee, would you? And then drink 10 cups of coffee, smoke 10 cigarettes, and walk out of the meeting an hour later and go, boy, why do I feel so bad? That's because I'm suffering from caffeine and carbon monoxide. I've killed myself, you know, physically. And my teddy bear's not saving me. He's all full of nicotine. He smells. We got to get rid of him. But that's what we were doing. I mean, whatever worked. It's insane. George knows what I'm talking about. I used to go to that teddy bear meeting all the time. But one day I didn't have my bear, so George sat on my leg. But teasing. Don't let me tease you. He's a big teddy bear, though. But that's what I would do. I would just try to find a way out of this thing because it hurt. What is sobriety? After a while, I was starting to question it. I think you guys were in on the conspiracy after a while. I was starting to walk into meetings going, maybe they're in on it too. There's always that voice back there just checking things out. So when I went through this and that speaker talked about this, I started to relate to being untreated. I'd done some work. I had sponsors. I've always had a sponsor. It's another thing too. It's a sponsorship, one-on-one sponsorship. Now there's another problem that happened about 6 months sober, and I remember when I was sitting in a noon meeting and the door opened, and she walked right around the corner. I'll never forget her. And she came around the corner, walked behind me, and I went, oh. And she walked over and sat down, and she was the third person they called on. And she said, yeah, my husband's left me, my dog's starving, my kids have no food, I don't know what I'm going to do. And my head popped up and said, she's perfect for me, I'll take her. Yep. So we went to coffee, and the next year and a half we went crazy on each other. Unbelievable. We went through stuff that people go through sober in relationships. We kept looking to each other for an answer. We were in love, but we were in love for a lot of the wrong reasons. And, Yep, she was perfect. We fought hard, we loved hard, we had a great time, but when we did fight, we hurt each other a lot because we just didn't know how to have a relationship. And we were looking to each other for solutions. So the relationship thing didn't work. And they said don't go, no relationships in the first year. And the truth is that just doesn't work because no one's ever done it in AA. It's, But I kept looking without. And what my sponsor started talking to me about was within. They said it's an inside job. It's an inside job. And I hooked up with that sponsor who did that tape. And I think, when I did hook up with him, it was the right time. I think he said that when the student's ready, the teacher appears. I was ready. I was hurting. And I almost drank right before that. And I was in a situation that could have taken me out of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's not even that. It's about taking my life. Because to me, I know today to drink is to die. If I drink, I'm dead. There's no two ways about it. It'll kill me. I can't stop when I start. That's alcoholism for me. Physically, I can't stop when I start. The craving comes up and it owns me. Alcohol owns me. And if I do one of those little other things that go around it, pot, drugs, all that, I do them all. I'm not like a little compartment guy. It's like just lay them on the table and we'll begin on this end and move across the table till they're gone. Or we'll just move in every direction, but that's what I do. I like to have it all, and I like to get it in and get the explosion. I like the boom. Anything to get away from me. I don't want to feel. I don't want to experience what I'm experiencing. The other thing that happens is I have a mind that lies to me. It says, what happened the last time when you stayed up for 4 days straight, spent $20,000 on drugs and booze, and you went through all your savings and went to ATMs and went through all the supermarkets in town to get more cash and drugs, switching shirts. I go in a supermarket, write a check, go through one check and write a check. I go out, get another shirt on, come back on, go through another one until I can get $300 worth of bounce checks. And then I'd come back and say, what happened the last time? I'd sit there remorseful and say, it's not going to happen this time. This time will be different. Now, somewhere between now when I was pummeled to death and I was completely wiped out from saying I'm never going to do this again, and I'd swear off. I'd get in the shower and do a real hot shower and say I'm never, ever, ever going to do this again. And it'd come from my most remorseful spot in my body. It'd come from a place that it was so deep and so sad and so full of hurt and despair and pain that I would just say I'm never, ever, ever going to do this again. I felt like an empty shell. I felt so hollow. I felt dead. And I'd say, I'm never going to do it again. And somewhere between that time and 48 hours later, the mind said, it won't happen like that again. Go ahead, try it again. This time you'll control it. And that's the insanity. The insanity of drinking was not all the crazy shit I did out there. It's when I took a drink, that's the insanity of alcoholism. Expecting it to be different. And every time I'd go back, I got the same result. Just about every time. Now my mind's real crazy when I'm going through this book and I'm saying, is this me? Every sentence, every word, we defined it, that sponsor. When I started working with him, every word, every sentence, having an experience. He called this the Book of Common Experience. It was designed to transmit an experience. That AA was an experiential program. And he said I could go back and look through my experience of when I drank and see about when it talks about the mind being the main crux of the problem. Did that happen to you? I could say, oh yeah. But there was always that one time it didn't, and my mind would latch onto that. And what I would say is, well, maybe I'm not. So what he did after I went through the first 4 chapters in the doctor's opinion is he went back and said, well, go back and ask yourself, what if you're not? And what I found was, if I'm not, I'm screwed. What's wrong with me? Because I can go through and relate to it totally. Bill's story, I thought it was about the guy who started this thing. I thought it was a nice tribute they put at the beginning of the book, you know. He wrote the book. Why not put a story about Bill at the beginning? I mean, I've read enough business manuals to know they put something about the president at the beginning, you know. But it's not. It's a story designed for me to relate to how he felt, how he thought, and how he drank. And when I go through the first 8 pages where his drinking and his transformation to getting sober, I relate to him. I never drove around with an Al-Anon in a sidecar screaming at me on a motorcycle, but I could relate to the drive being on and wanting to get it right and hiding from people and lying and cheating and the drive to win again. The thinking, how he felt, I could relate to it. So when I finally got up to how it works, because you know, here's the thing, I went to college. I grew up in a smart family. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path and goes through that whole little thing. Is beautiful. What a passage. That's why we read it. The problem is it's in chapter 5. So that's where I started. And I came to AA, I heard that, so that must be the beginning of a book. I'll start right over there. Plus, I'm smart enough, I could skip those first 4 chapters anyway, so let's get over here to where it says how it works. It gets right into the steps. Why not? Just do the steps that are on the wall. So I did that. That's what I did the first 2.5 years here. And that's why I ended up where I was at, bankrupt. Spiritually dead. Hurting. What I learned later on is these are the abbreviations. It's defined in this book. The Book of Common Experience for alcoholics. My sponsor talked to me about having an experience. He said, have you had one with God? And that terrified me because I really couldn't say I had. I had a couple other guys coming out of town who stayed with me just out of the clear blue sky. Have you had an experience with a power greater than yourself? I said, oh yeah, you wouldn't believe what happened to me. I was at a meeting and this guy did this and he got up off his crutches and walked across. It was something we call a miracle or whatever. And I'd say, oh, that was my experience. He says, yeah, but have you had one? One that was interpersonal with yourself, within. And I started to go, no, I haven't. And the funny thing was when I started going through this work with somebody else who could kind of like take it out of my head and start putting it through the rest of my body, physically, mentally, and spiritually, I started to have an experience of, yeah, that's me. And what happened was I got a lot of relief because all those years of the what's wrong with me went away. What happened was I started to see this is how I've lived. So when I get to the chapter of the agnostic, it talks about logic. It's great stuff. We liked it. We still like it. You know, I like to live in my head instead of get the rest of my body. Just numb everything out and let's just talk out of the computer for a while. You know, it's like a safe place to stay. And what they started talking about is that you know, where I can find God was deep down within, was in my whole being. They started talking to me about being a human being and not a human doing. They started talking about me about getting in touch with all of me. And when I started doing this work, I started to see it. When I started going through this process, I started to see that this is me. So when I got to how it works, because it talks about the mind being crazy and all the different little stories about the hitchhiker going across the street against traffic and he gets back over and breaks his leg and then he gets over and goes, well, I think I'll go one more time. You know, I'm the hitchhiker. I just kept going back and forth. There was nothing left to walk on and then still drag myself across. That's me. I just don't give up. I'm just a stubborn, sick person who doesn't want to go anywhere that's uncomfortable or even remotely good for myself. But I started trusting these people, and they started talking to me about this process, and I had misused my power. I misused how I lived. I didn't know how. I never really was taught. There was no book. And I heard the Bible, and I went to Catholic school, and they told me a lot of good stuff, you know. And then I read the papers, and then I listened to smart people. I went to school. I read some books about theology and, and all that stuff. But what I couldn't tell you was what I was about. I had no clue about what I was about because I was always out here. They started talking to me about that journey within. And they talked about this. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power which we could live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves. Obviously, but where and how to find this power. And they said, well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself which will solve your problem. Now here's how I heard it. Here's how sick I was. Able to find a power greater than myself so I can solve my problem. And the problem was I was solving my problem. You take a sick guy like me and solve my problem and you'll keep getting sick. Einstein says you use the same kind of thinking that got you into the problem, you're going to keep having the same kind of thinking that gets you into the problem. You got to have different thinking. So the rest of this work was about stepping off and trusting. Now there's something I want to point out here. In step 2 or 3, you make a decision. This is coming from a sick mind to do the rest of these steps. That's kind of sick too, don't you think? I'm sick and I'm going to trust that. But I had to because it was the only place to go. I was willing to try something I hadn't. They also asked me another question. They said, how long have you been here? How long have you been trying to get this? And have you really done the work? But they asked another question. Have you completed all your amends? And I can honestly say no. And I had a bunch of them. I'd heard a lot of people drunk and sober. I'd heard a lot of people about how, with my opinions and my thoughts, how I'd acted, how I'd lived, how I was being with them, how I'd cut them off, how I'd killed them off from my life, how I'd silence scorn, I'd pushed them back. But actually I could say right when I got there is I could not say I'd done my amends. I'd been here for 2.5 years, and they kept saying, well, when are you going to do it? Because it's not about doing it. The question is, are you going to be able to live through all that to get and stay sober before you end up drinking and dying? Because it's about alcohol. What we do is we don't not just not do and go home. We actually drink again. Our experience is that we drink again. And my experience was I was starting to live again like I was going to drink again. But I want to tell you, I wrote 650 names on that resentment list. I was pissed at everybody, all the conspirators. If I'd had a phone book around me, I would have added them on too. But I did it. I wrote that inventory, and it was a lot. And what I found out is the first 50 actually took care of the last 600. They were just all the same kind of people. They just looked like them. But I did a fear inventory. It took a while. I also got involved with AA service at the time too, because it was a little too uncomfortable to have that many resentments to write in an inventory. So I figured, what the hell, I won't do that for a while. I'll go out and do AA service. So I did that for a while, back and forth, and I started getting involved with AA service, the young people in AA, which turned out to be a real gift because I've been able to go all over the country and all over Canada and all that stuff, doing young people in AA and carrying the message. But that's what kept me alive, as I started doing all 3 parts of the program. I was in the fellowship, and I was involved with the recovery program, doing the 12 steps, and I started doing the service. I started giving away what was being given to me. Even though I was only in the 3rd step, I started giving it away to people because I started learning by giving it away. They told me start at once giving this away and start sponsoring guys. People that are sitting in meetings dying, looking for a way out. Even if they've been sober 2 years, 3 years, 20 years, 40 years, go work with them because it ain't about their time anymore. It's about what's happening now so they can stay sober one day at a time. Because a lot of them are drinking. And that could be you. So they said, throw yourself into helping others. When you're feeling uncomfortable, throw yourself into helping others. Do what you can. So that's what I did. I did it on a full-time basis. I terrorized people for 10 years and young people in Alcoholics Anonymous all around this area. Kept going. I used to come to meetings with stacks of flyers. Okay, you're all going. Don't argue with me. You're going to the dance. Okay, you're going to be at the dance tonight. And George knows he was at them. We do the gratitude retreat dances too. We stand outside and wait till something would happen. Just wait till it would get better sometimes. But we just get involved. Just get submersed in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I used to think, what a burden this is. What a bummer. But I found out it was one of the greatest gifts that ever happened to me. Because the more I gave here, the more I got in my life. The more I gave here, the more my relationships with my dad and my mom all worked out. My dad's got 18 years in Alcoholics Anonymous. He's still very active today. He goes to meetings all the time. My stepmom's got 27 years in Al-Anon. And my mom's in her recovery the way she is. She's doing great. But that was not great at one time, 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years sober. I was separate from and being right. And I was afraid. And by coming in here and learning and just keep throwing myself into the principles of service and AA, and then eventually getting that work done, getting that inventory finished so I could read it to somebody, I began to change and started to heal. But I resisted that change. They showed me the brass ring, and I said, no. I got something better. It was always because I was so afraid to be vulnerable to the fact that I might just get everything I've ever wanted. I might be able to connect with people and have relationships work. I was so afraid to have a decent relationship with my parents, when all I ever really wanted deep in my heart was just to have a relationship with my parents, because I didn't know how to do it. But by coming in here and working with George and Dave Barge and a few of the elderly men or the older men, the guys with experience, I learned respect for men. The other thing is I worked with the ladies too. I used to get these, I like these ladies over here, the back row ladies, because they're always here, and if I go overtime, I know the keys are going to start jingling, and they're going to drop them on the floor. That's like I'm time to quit, so I want to make sure I stop on time. But the women taught me just as much about compassion and love as much as the men did. And I've had some women sponsors, women I could go to and sit down and talk about femininity and get in touch with my own. And I know why I did that, because I've always wanted to be fully alive. There's a side of me that's my mom in me. I'm a man, but I got my mom in me too. And when I go sit with my mom, it's like she's a mirror of me. I sit there and see me in her and goes, wow. And for a lot of years, I rejected that gift in her. I rejected the gift that my parents were for me, because all they've ever wanted was for me to be happy. All they've ever wanted from me is to have my life turn out and live a happy, useful, successful life. And because of Alcoholics Anonymous and doing this work and facing up to what it was kicking my ass all these years through inventory and especially making amends, my life changed. And it changed in a dramatic way. I mean, unbelievably. I'm going to tell you, if you're not getting through this process, and it's an ever-ending process. It just keeps going because you got to get up there. I mean, I'll probably walk out here and have to make amends right away to somebody just because I started living again. Because that's it. When you start moving motion, gravity comes into place and something happens. There's interpretation, and sometimes the interpretation is not always pleasant. But these steps help me to clean it up and create more communication and more understanding and more compassion and more empathy to everyone around me and the world, where we don't have to be right about it and we can be in partnership. But I didn't see it that way for a long time. When I went to make amends, I had 220 amends. Give or take a few. I started adding more on as I started doing more too. But I started out with 220. I think I added another 10 or 15 of them. I've seen just about all of them except for about 25. If I ran into the 25, I would do them. And I have. At reunions. I was at a reunion, ran into an old girlfriend there, was slow dancing with her, started talking to her about our relationship when we were 16. She was in tears and I was in tears, and we realized that we really liked each other at the time, but we got right about it and didn't communicate that for all those years. And she ended up on my amends list, and all I knew is I had to have that conversation, and her big request was just keep in touch with me and let me know how you're doing for the rest of your life. But we had an amazing experience right there. And the funny thing was they were playing Stairway to Heaven at the right time. So we're sitting there like, oh my God, I'm having this like out-of-body experience, like we're at the high school dance, and her husband's over there, and I want to lean over and kiss her like she's my girlfriend. But that's how much I was in the experience. And I finally got that. I was in an experiential program where in order for me to clean out the amends, I got to revisit. Amends is clean up or make right. I got to revisit how I had been and clean that up so I can move forward. But until I don't clean that up, it's going to own me. And it's going to block me from God. And most of all, it's going to block me from you and from me. So now I can't be fully alive. So it's vital that I stay clean and sober. See, clean and sober I thought was just don't drink and go to meetings. But how am I doing that in the recovery side? I know when I'm off track when I'm only working one or two sides of the triangle. I need to work all three sides. It's an equilateral triangle. It means mind, body, and spirit. And the circle around it gives me hope that someday I might be whole. When the truth is I already am. I've just forgotten. I've forgotten through resentment and fear and troubles in relationships, sexually, emotionally, intimacy. God knows I don't want to get too close to anybody. Into me, you see, intimacy. Don't let anybody see inside me. But the gifts of the program are that I get to be intimate. And it's scary. Because it means I'm at stake about what matters most to me. But always God is there to save me. God is always there supporting me. And what God did is He gave me great people in my life and in Alcoholics Anonymous who could be with me in a way that, yeah, you're okay. You are the prince. You are shining. And don't misunderstand me, it's not in a place like it's righteous. It's like connected foundation, walking in sync with life. Synchronicity. I've never understood that for a lot of years. But when I started doing this work and going through and doing those amends, that's where it changed. Magical. How I find God is by sitting down and cleaning up my life and looking into another person and listening to what they have to say about themselves. I find a power deep within us. In fact, the big book says in the last analysis, that's where He may be found. But I've always looked out here. The right woman, the right car, clothes, how the gut hangs, how's my body, all that stuff. How's it when I'm parting my hair? Very wide, thank you. Had the bangs done the other day. That's funny, when I get a haircut, it's become a riot. It used to bother the shit out of me, as you probably can imagine, but I walk in and they very seriously look at me every single time and say, so, how do you want it cut? So I very loudly, with a smile, say, "Give me a mohawk." And it always makes them uncomfortable. I don't know why. It's like something I'm pretending not to know here. There's nothing up there, lady. Get the number 2s out. We're done in 10 minutes, okay? You got to learn how to laugh at yourself. And then there's these 5 hairs that always drive them crazy. They kind of move in and out. They're like little antennas. Would you mind if I cut those? No, go ahead and put some mousse on those and move them back to the right for me. I'll take it that way. The last lady asked me, "You want me to mousse your hair?" "Yeah, go right ahead, lady." The more they do that, the more I give them on a tip every time. This is a daily process. I want to tell you, I describe all this stuff. I haven't thought about drinking much in the last 10 or 12 years, hardly at all. My life's been so full and so rich. I've traipsed all over the country, been able to meet lots of people. I'm still learning. I don't know how to do relationships right yet sometimes. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Most of it has to do if I just shut my mouth and listen, all my relationships seem to work out. When I know too much or get my opinions involved, then I push people back. I like to be right. And I like to kill people off by being right. And I keep people from knowing me by being right. And the best thing I can do is just be. The big book says that we turn to God and ask him what we'd have us be. I'm a human being first, not a human doing. But when I'm in touch with my being, the enthusiasm's there, the joy's there, I'm connected with myself, and somehow or another it seems to show up in front of me that my jobs and the people I'm around and the relationships and all the things that matter to me seem to work just fine. But I gotta come back home. I gotta come back home to the God within me, to my heart, to my centeredness. And how I do that is through these 12 steps. I use the St. Francis prayer every day. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace. That where there is hatred, let me sow love. That where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Lord, grant that I not shall seek to console, but to be consoled, but to console someone. To give than rather to receive. To love than to be loved. For it's in getting that one, forgetting that one finds. So when I give, I get. It's all in the giving. Give, give, give. Home is not a place you go to, it's a place you come from. And when I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous, when I come here and I'm just connected with you guys, I'm at home every time. And the funny thing is now, most of the time in my life, when I'm driving down the street and I'm in touch with God, it's coming from my heart and coming from what's the deepness in me, I'm coming from home. So I'm always home no matter wherever I go. You guys gave me that. The other thing I mentioned earlier is that when I came here, I was spiritually empty. And I'd mentioned enthusiasm. I'm very enthusiastic. I have a lot of energy. In fact, it kind of drives people crazy. But I want to end with this. The definitions that I looked through in the big book was important because I needed to find out what these things meant to me. And I found out that I wasn't as educated as I thought, and I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I actually if I stood back and was willing to learn, I could learn a lot more and have a deeper understanding about everything in life. But a couple words came to mind, and one was honesty. Honesty means one is. One is. So if I'm doing that, I'm with one. The other thing was enthusiasm. And the big book, the dictionary describes that as God-driven. And I've been accused of being way too over-enthusiastic sometimes, but I just keep coming because life's full. But I love it. I love my enthusiasm, and I love that I get from being in Alcoholics Anonymous what you gave me. And the other one was spiritual. When I came here, I was dead. And what the spiritual means, or is defined as, is the breath of life. So by coming to AA, what you've given me, by doing this process and being involved with these principles and using them all in my everyday life, and having the privilege to be in a seat of Alcoholics Anonymous for almost 14 years, is the breath of life. And what that's given me is a full, rich life, and I'm really grateful. Thanks for letting me be here.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. to install the joysticks for control. Up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. If that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.